If you're on an Iranian warship,
dude,
get that white flag up there because it's a wrap.
it is really something to hear a general describe in great detail what it is they're going to do and then go do it.
Donald Trump, I think, has found a rational, sober third way of American foreign policy that knows the limitations of what America's military can do, but uses that power when it can.
The entire messaging of the left, of the Democrat Party now is America's bad. I will always take the other side of America in every possible opportunity. Any position to take against America, they will take it. What the left now is just anti-America.
Washington politicians are always getting in your wallet. Now they're messing with your credit card. Your credit card and the security it offers are under attack. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would change the nation's payment system to benefit corporate megastores like Walmart and Target at the expense of everyday Americans. Credit cards keep your payments secure and provide rewards that families use to help make everyday purchases more affordable. The Durbin-Marshall mandates would let corporate megastores cut corners on credit card processing, routing transactions over cheaper, untested networks with weaker security and fewer protections. That means higher risk of fraud, greater chance of stolen personal data, and the loss of rewards programs, just so corporate megastores can pocket billions of dollars in higher profits. Tell Congress to guard your card. Visit guardyourcard.com to take action and learn more. Well, the Working Families Tax Cut is delivering for American businesses, workers, and families. Real wages are rising faster. Businesses are accelerating investments at home, and more economic growth and American jobs are on the way. Thank you, President Trump and Congress, for passing the Working Families Tax Cut, paid for by the Business Roundtable.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. It's time for our main event.
Good Thursday to you. Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, and John Ashbrook, left to right across your radio dial. There's an awful lot going on this week. You know, just there is no boredom in this life. I mean, just when you think things are sort of settling on in a touch, you get the primary season that starts. We're going to talk about that, big results in Texas this week. You got a war that's going on, which we're going to show you some things. It's unbelievable what the United States is doing, and incredibly good in my point of view. But we'll have a discussion about all of that. We've got an incredible guest today, Jared Isaacman. You've probably heard his name before. This is a dude. This is like one of those guys who you drop onto the planet who does all of the things. And now he's the NASA administrator.
Yeah, seems like the perfect guy for the job.
Yeah, you want somebody who thinks all of the things doing that gig. And we have a great conversation with him coming. And we're going to play a game. It's King of the Hill Day. So Thursdays. We're going to have some yucks, too, because there's plenty to yuck about when it comes to politics and Democrats, how they're approaching. They don't know what the hell they're doing.
That's for sure.
They really don't know what the hell they're doing. But let's just start with the action, as it were, in clip 6.
So for our audio listeners, you are seeing the U.S. military just torpedoing the shit out of an Iranian ship. And the Department of War put this video out there of, I believe it's the first time
since World War
II a foreign adversary ship's been taken down by torpedo.
Yeah, so a Navy submarine sank this Iranian flagship as it returns from Sri Lanka. Evidently, I read a little bit that it thought it was in international waters. I'm not clear about what the Iranians told their soldiers and their seamen about rules of engagement in a war. It turns out when you have a warship and you are at war, it is in danger.
And I looked because they didn't have, they weren't smart enough to fly a white flag because it's over, bro. You know what I mean? Like if you're on an Iranian warship,
dude,
get that white flag up there because it's a wrap. Like you're just seeing what's happening out there. It's a wrap. Stay in Sri Lanka. Maybe hang on the islands. You know, you've already got like essentially a yacht. Throw all the guns in the water so no one mistakes what's happening.
They'd be better off taking themselves to that North Sentinel Island or whatever it is, where they have the dudes with the
the spears,
who have killed everyone who's ever gone on there. It seems like it's a better.
I mean, fly
more
the white
welcoming
flag,
committee.
stick to the islands. Do not go back.
Do not. Do not. I think I read somewhere they had 20 ships. 20 ships are now at the bottom of the sea.
I heard that this morning. I think they walked through that with Hegseth and Raisin Cane daily press conference.
Well, speaking of Raisin Cane, we got a clip of him. Clip 7.
As of this morning, U.S. Central Command is making steady progress. Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. Wow. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days. This progress has allowed CENTCOM to establish localized air superiority across the southern flank of the Iranian coast and penetrate their defenses with overwhelming precision and firepower. We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces.
Freedom of maneuver.
It's really something. Look, for those of us who've watched conflict, war over the years, it's an ugly business, no question about it. And it's, dynamic in nature. It is really something to hear a general describe in great detail what it is they're going to do and then go do it.
Yeah, it's very clinical, right? And I obviously, and Pete Hegseth talked about this as well, is what they're doing is taking out Iran's entire missile launching capability.
Yeah.
Right. Because, they produce a lot of missiles and they have a lot of launchers. They have a lot less launchers today than they had this weekend, and less launchers than they had during the 12-day war when we bombed the nuclear facilities. So they get rid of the launchers, they establish air superiority, and then Iran can't really do anything but come to the table to negotiate. I think that's the plan.
Yeah, it seems to me that, and we're going to get into specifically what the White House has put out in terms of what their plan actually is, so you all have a better understanding. I thought Tuesday's episode, by the way, was absolutely terrific in giving us an overview of all of that in some detail. But when they say air superiority, they mean it. I mean, the best you can tell after the first few days of this conflict, you could have Art Scholl flying Lumschivox in a biplane over Tehran. I mean, it's truly, it doesn't seem like there is resistance.
Right.
There's a lot to be said about the military, the American military, our service members, President Trump, Secretary Hegseth. This has just been incredible. And it's truly mind-blowing to see a military so powerful and accomplishing so much. Because here's the thing is the Iranian military was one of the world's largest and best armed. And the American military has free reign essentially right now.
Well, for decades, it was at least inferred for those of us who are in this line of work and following all of this stuff relatively closely, it was at least inferred that Iran was not Iraq, in that in a full-on war, there's no question about the outcome in terms of the United States being able to prevail in that, but it was really messy and much more than any conflict we had been in basically since Vietnam in that regard. It just doesn't. Something has happened here significantly with this Department of Defense, where
Department of War. This country wins wars now. We don't worry about defense.
But it combines, I think, a few things. Number one, the professionalism of the American soldier and our military broadly. I think it combines that with clearly dominant superiority of weaponry. And then the third thing is, I think, technology. And our ability to use that technology for intelligence gathering. And clearly, they tried to meet just to vote for a new supreme leader lunatic, and
it evaporated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just do Zoom, guys.
Right.
But I don't know what it's going to take for some of these like belligerent countries who are opposed to America to get the message that they're not quite up to par with our men and women in uniform. I mean, if they didn't believe it after Operation Midnight Hammer last summer, all they needed to do was read the eyewitness testimony of that guy in Venezuela who was trying to defend Maduro against the Americans. You guys remember this, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You remember this. Anybody who's listening to this who is not familiar with this eyewitness testimony, let me just read you a piece.
And this is unconfirmed, to be clear. No one knows what happened here.
That's right. Smug's right. This is unconfirmed. However, it was passed around by the White House.
The president answered questions related to this.
Yeah, this is the Venezuelan security guard. After drones appeared, some helicopters arrived. There were very few, I think maybe 8. And a very small number of men came down, maybe 20. But those men were technologically very advanced. They didn't look like anything we fought against before. And then somebody asked, the battle began. And he said, yeah, but it was a massacre. We were hundreds, but we had no chance. They were shooting with such precision and speed, it seemed like every soldier was firing 300 rounds a minute. We couldn't do anything. And your own weapons, didn't they help? No help at all. Because it wasn't just weapons. At one point, they launched something. I don't know how to describe it. It was like a very intense sound wave. Suddenly, I felt my head was exploding from the inside. We all started bleeding from the nose. Some were vomiting blood, and we fell to the ground, unable to move. And this is somebody describing what they were up against with American precision, professionalism, everything you described coming down on them like a ton of bricks. Like, why would the Iranians
I don't know.
I mean,
look, I think that they have lived in their own cylinder for long enough. I think Brian Hook adequately explained their point of view well on Tuesday's show. And they didn't know, obviously, what they were getting themselves into. But again, this is a mission, much like Venezuela was, that before it happened, under President Trump's watch, there was bipartisan consensus that something needed to be done, right? You heard everybody from Schumer on down talk about there's no way you can ever allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. We need to do something about that. You had Obama delivering ballots of cash. That obviously didn't work. All these things were consensus in the United States and in our government. Trump does something about it, and Democrats are trying to figure out how to retrofit their position on all of this in a way that is just consistent with being opposition to whatever Donald Trump does. So no matter how successful the mission is, they have to figure out a way to like unfuck their messaging over the last 20 years and give you a new one and just listen to some of this stuff. Like it's unbelievable. Clip 1.
Do you think Israel, forced the U.S.'s hand here, boxed the U.S. in on this?
Look, no one wants a nuclear war. No one wants a nuclear Israel, but we certainly don't want an endless war, plain and simple.
It is not plain and simple.
What did I say?
Oh, they brought him back.
Staffers.
No, got it. Let me say that again. No one wants an endless war, but we certainly don't want a nuclear Iran. That's for sure. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, clear as mud, Chuck. Fantastic messaging.
What a leader.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why AOC is going to primary his ass. There's a reason he wakes up scared every day. If you want to give him a jump scare, if you pass him in the hall, just say AOC, and he's shook. Like he knows it's a wrap. He knows it's over. He's basically just trying to cobble together a coalition of enough people to let him try and hold on to it. It's so over.
And the Dems,
so over.
And the Dems messaging is like sort of the Schrodinger's cat on this whole situation. They're like, certainly we cannot allow a nuclear Iran. We have to stop it.
Yes.
Donald Trump is not supposed to stop it.
Yeah.
No. It's so then what the fuck are we supposed to do?
It makes no sense. But I mean, any casual observer would understand the direct contradiction in any one of their statements. And it's not just Chuck Schumer. It is rank and file. It is House and Senate. You want to hear from the House leader? This is going to be fantastic. Clip 2.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Back in 2011, Nancy Pelosi said that then President Obama didn't need congressional approval to bomb Libya. Now House Democrats say President Trump needs that approval to bomb Iran. What's the difference?
Well, obviously, Libya and the circumstances connected to that were very different than the circumstance that we face in Iran right now. I mean, I don't even understand the genesis or basis of that question. Not suggesting that you're not asking it in good faith.
Libya went on for 7 months.
As I've indicated,
Bill Malugin does not.
First of all, was not in Congress at the time.
So now he
we're
wasn't
dealing
there.
with what we're dealing with right now, which is a catastrophic, endless war, as Donald Trump has characterized it.
Been going on for 72 hours.
Without any justification that there was going to be a preeminent assault or attack on the United States of America.
Do those words mean what he thinks he means?
I think he means preemptive.
I think preemptive was the word he was searching for.
Timu Obama.
Timu Obama has no clue what he's saying. Bill Malugin got his ass hard, and then he got him when like this is a schoolyard fight where he's like, no, I wasn't even in Congress then. What are you talking?
He went from having a defined position about the differences, so much so that he suggested the question in and of itself was bad faith because of those extreme differences, at which point he had to explain what those differences were. Well, I wasn't here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't here. Dude, that is amazing that you're like, it's not my fault because I wasn't here. Why are you trying to make me answer for the consequences of my decision making here? What?
I mean, that's basically it. So, look, if they weren't such horrible people, you would almost feel bad because they're sitting on top of this conference that doesn't know shit from Shinola on anything domestic, foreign, war, peace, and nothing. They know absolutely nothing, but the base is absolutely certain. But when you ask them what it is that they're absolutely certain about, well, they show a little bit more than perhaps the leadership would like them to. Put up graphic 4, please. This is Rashida Tlaib. You remember her? She's part of the squad. He comes up from time to time. She's got a retweet of some Mohammed Safa.
Yeah, Iranian propaganda.
Which, as you recall, in the early hours of the incursion into Iran, there was propaganda that came out about a girls' school, which it fits like every single Hamas and Hezbollah deal. It's like the most obvious thing of all time.
Dude, if you just scroll through X, it's the funniest thing I think about, when you have a conflict like this, just how much disinformation is out there. Just people just lying. Like you will scroll through your timeline and half the stuff will have a community note.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean,
stay vigilant, people. Stay vigilant.
X has been one big community note for the last 72 hours.
Which, just as a quick aside, is incredible. I think community note is an amazing feat. Like the amount of stupidity out there that, especially from Dems, putting this stuff out there that immediately will get tagged with a link to an actual source. It's wonderful.
It is. It's wonderful. So, but she's going to interact with this because, of course, the absolutely fictional surfacing of propaganda is something that our member of United States Congress needs to weigh in on. And what she says is both the U.S. and genocidal Israel doesn't care about the laws.
Great sentence structure, by the way.
I mean, that's just fantastic.
This is the important part.
This is who they are.
So we have Rashida Tlaib, who's a member, sadly, of the U.S. Congress, referring to America as they, as someone other than who you're a part of. It's extremely telling because I think she truly let the mask slip in a moment of trying to get her propaganda out there because she just hates America. Let's all be honest here. And this has been so infuriating to me to see over the past few days is this kind of crystallization among what the left now is just anti-America. It doesn't matter who the United States with Donald Trump as president is involved in a conflict with. It doesn't matter what he opposes. The position of the left is to be like, the other thing is good. If it was like Donald Trump finds a cure for cancer, they'll be like, cancer did nothing wrong. As long as they're like, America is an evil colonial empire to stop cancer. Why shouldn't cancer grow on stolen land? Anything. If there's any position to take against America, they will take it. And for her, this is a member of Congress saying they to the U.S. She's clearly considering herself on the other side from America.
It's funny because it's like the sort of thing that if the member of Congress was Jewish, the anti-Semites would be like dual loyalty.
Oh, yeah.
Dual loyalty.
Yeah.
Were they?
Yeah.
I thought you represent us.
Yeah.
But it's like she's Palestinian, so she gets away with that.
So she gets away with it. But look, as far as I'm concerned, this is a censure.
Minimum.
I would boot her ass right out of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
I would hold a vote on it. If she wants to come down to the House floor and say that she misspoke in her tweet and doesn't mean they, she means us, then have her do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that, at a minimum, requires, because just recall, it doesn't matter if you're a member of Congress or you're working in an administration or whatever, you're a staff member on Capitol Hill. The first thing you do when you get your pay stub and your W-2 and all of that filled out is hold up your hand and swear allegiance and take an oath.
Yeah.
And that's right to the heart of it. That's right to the heart of it is this has sprung up, this anti-American left. And I remember growing up and every morning in school would start with the Pledge of Allegiance and you'd have pride for this country and you'd love this country, and that they so openly, the entire messaging of the left, of the Democrat Party now is America's bad. I will always take the other side of America in every possible opportunity. Every one of these protests you see when it's anti-ICE, they're like, America's a horrible country on stolen land and it will always be wrong. I think, censoring her is the moderate option. She needs to be denaturalized and deported. I've really gotten to that position of like so many of these problems. And a lot of it, as Ashbrook's pointed out, there's been terrific reporting on this that Fox News has done. So much of this is foreign countries spending money here in America to try to divide us, to try to support these kind of like Marxist, anti-American bullshit. And I'm done with it.
Yeah, we need like a CBP One app for self-deportation for members of Congress.
Yep.
But I mean, for real, I think I would take this seriously. And there are some
100%.
things that, look, the Speaker of the House doesn't want to have to deal with this bullshit. They got a lot of stuff going on. They're still, Democrats, by the way, at this very moment, have defunded the Department of Homeland Security at a time of war. We're not even talking about that.
We're in a conflict with Iran, which is the number one nation on earth for state sponsor of terrorism. And the Department of Homeland Security is shut down because Democrats won't allow it to open. Think about that.
And because they're upset about deporting people.
I hate saying the like if roles were reversed thing, but it is important to say like if the roles were reversed here, it would be the lead of every nightly news program.
Every night.
Jake Tapper would be like, did you know our Department of Homeland Security is closed while we're in conflict with a terrorist country?
They'd be chasing people around.
Oh, yeah.
How in the world could you allow this to happen? You're making America more vulnerable at a time of war. Where's your patriotism? Yada, yada. Well, they'd say they towards America. I would take this seriously. If I was the Speaker of the House, I'd say either you want to revise and extend the remarks about who they and us are, or you're in violation of your oath of office. It's one of the two, and we'll take an up or down vote. And I'll be honest with you, I think they can win that vote.
Yeah.
I think they can win that vote. I really do. That's what I would do. But look, she's not alone. George Conway, a perennial contestant on King of the Hill, has decided, now he's running for Congress. Remember, he moved to New York and decided that like he's going to try his hand at the political game.
He's America's most divorced man ever.
It's just like the worst midlife crisis in history.
Yeah, some people buy a BMW, some people run for Congress.
Some people switch their entire ideological proclivities whatsoever. Stop asking for a job from the party that they've professed their loyalty to.
He tried to work for Donald Trump.
Tried to work for him.
Yes.
And he was rejected. He became pissed, started to become a critic. Now he's a full-blown psychopath. Check out graphic 6. Perhaps the terrorist state with nuclear weapons is, checks notes, oh, that's cute, George, the United States of America.
I mean, it's so many people tagged us on this particular tweet. They were like, "This, you got to play this like King of the Hill. You got to play this like King of the Hill. This is an instant winner." But obviously, that's not going to make it this week's.
Well, we had to
because
do
you
it.
have to separate it out just to make a point. Because what he is saying is, I mean, how did Democrats get to this place? I mean, you guys mentioned that he wanted to work
Trump
for
did
Trump.
It to them.
He just did it.
But the defeat is just so brutal.
Usually this sort of commentary is reserved for like the white guy with braids and a tie-dyed shirt and the freshman quad. And he says this between bong rips.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I
or
mean?
Or the dude with the beard who was storming the church in North Minneapolis.
The woke farmer.
The woke farmer. Yeah, that guy. But this is somebody who used to be a serious attorney.
Yeah, he was at WLRK. Like, that's a good point. He was at the best law, like the dream law firm that all these people who go through the torture that is law school dream of ending up at WLRK to get paid the big bucks. He doesn't get that job, and it just insta spirals. Like, he loses his family, his marriage falls apart. And now he's but I don't feel any sympathy for him. Like, look at this stuff he's saying.
I know.
Now, when you go
Still
woke,
sad.
you go broke. It's well established at this point, And so now he's doing what he's doing. All right. So Carolyn Levitt, good friend of the program, White House press secretary, helpfully laid out a few of the objectives that the White House is trying to reiterate. The reason that we feel like we need to get into this is, frankly, you're not getting it on the news. But I think it's important. It builds upon what Brian Hook was talking about on Tuesday for you to just get a little bit better understanding of what it is that we're doing here. She writes in part, and this is much longer, but we're doing a little bit of a summary. On Saturday, President Trump released a statement laying out the clear objectives for the American people for Operation Epic Fury. Let me reiterate them. Destroy the Iranian regime's missiles and raze their missile industry to the ground. Annihilate the Iranian regime's navy. Check. Ensure the regime's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces. Stop them from making and using IEDs or roadside bombs, which have gravely wounded and killed thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. Guarantee that Iran can never obtain nuclear weapons. So that's just like point, right? Huge amount of discussion about what comes next. What do you leave behind? Does that mean that Iran is self-governing at all? And what is our commitment to all of that? We're going to get into a larger discussion about all of that right after this.
Energy is all around us. It's how we move, how we build, and how we make every day a little easier. We're all around America's oil and natural gas, supporting 11 million good-paying American jobs across the country and powering our way of life. But energy demand is growing and fast. That's why we need to overhaul our broken permitting process to unleash America's abundant natural resources, strengthen national security, and create a future where American energy leads the world. What America builds today will help secure a more affordable, more reliable future with enough energy to go around for generations to come. Our country can't wait. We must pass permitting reform now to help secure American energy dominance. Because when America builds, America wins. America's oil and natural gas. Paid for by the American Petroleum Institute.
In America, parents call the shots for their families, not bureaucrats. But the so-called App Store Accountability Act puts your child at risk. This bill requires app stores to collect children's sensitive personal data while taking away power from parents over how their child's data is handled by tech companies. Parents should get to decide if their child's age is shared with apps, not politicians. Parents should attest to their kids' ages, not turn over birth certificates to tech companies. Congress, don't put kids at greater risk online and box parents out of making decisions for their families. Tell your lawmaker to put parents first. There are better ways to keep kids safe. NetChoice is dedicated to making the internet safe for free expression and free enterprise. Learn more at netchoice.org/keep app stores safe.
Okay, so look, I got a pretty good feel for things after listening to Hook on Tuesday. It is extremely unclear what the Democratic opposition to this whole mess looks like. I mean, you've heard from the two leaders that were clear as mud about what the opposition is, but I do think at some level there's been a conversation from that sort of isolationist libertarian right, you know, the Tucker Carlsons of the world and folks like that who are extremely concerned about where this whole thing lands. Not heard that same, you know, other than maybe out of Rand Paul, though I haven't heard a lot out of Rand Paul. There's not a lot under the dome in terms of Republican lawmakers expressing that. But the glitter out, you know, everybody tries to find where the rifts are. And I know you've put some thought into this, Dunks.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm nervous like any American whenever I hear a war in the Middle East. You know, I mean, grew up in an era where we were in Afghanistan and Iraq and all of that sort of stuff. And, those were very long wars, and we lost a lot in blood and treasure fighting them. And so I think, you want to take people at their word and hope they're operating in good faith when they question what Donald Trump is doing in American foreign policy. But it feels like the isolationist right has gotten rhetorically lazy in so much of their argument. Not everything falls under this false choice that they set up as isolation or forever war.
Yeah.
Frankly, that doesn't reflect Donald Trump's first administration. No. When he turned Soleimani into salsa, as Smug always says, striking the Russian jets in Syria. That's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I think, has found a rational, sober third way of American foreign policy that knows the limitations of what America's military can do, yes, but uses that power when it can. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's really simple. And I don't know. It just bothers me that I think people light their hair on fire for clicks, saying everything's going to be World War III. Now, I'm not a neocon who goes into every one of these things with rose-colored glasses about the greatness of democracy will now be spread to the Middle East. Yeah. No, it won't. Right. Frankly, their values are not our values, and we should stop trying to make their values our values. Mm-hmm. I think that is a rational foreign policy, and I think that's what Trump is trying to do. Yeah, I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's a really excellent breakdown. Mm-hmm. And also to couch it in, especially for folks our age, folks who a lot of our listeners are, and everyone who pretty much, actually any age group who listens to us knows that extended period of time that America was at war in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and the way that Biden pulled out of there, and the memory of that, and of so many of us who had friends who went over there, mm-hmm. family went over there, friends who didn't come back.
Wolf
friends in the studio.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's understandable given that experience for so many people to have that, like Duncan described, the conflict in the Middle East. Here we go again. I know how this is. We see it again and again.
I guess my point on it is.
Well, could I make my point on it, or you want to go on? Here,
No. Just one thing real quick.
It's the Duncan show today, folks. Go for it.
Is that the libertarians have used the specter of Iraq to, I think, blackmail Americans' foreign policy into never doing anything. And that's what bothers me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, well, now that we've addressed your concerns, I'd like to continue.
Go ahead, dude.
So it's understandable for so many folks to feel that kind of instant skepticism and just the negative sentiment that, especially for a lot of veterans, that associates with them because of how they saw all the work they mm-hmm. and their friends and the folks they served with put into Afghanistan and Iraq and the outcomes that we see from that. But truly base this independently on Trump's own track record. Mm-hmm. And also, when you mentioned the neocon thing, if the drastic turn, because there was that whole Colin Powell doctrine of you break it, you fix it mm-hmm. kind of thing. And it's the purpose of a military, and why I really love the name is the Department of War, where it is mission-centered.
Yeah, it's a clarity of mission for sure.
Complete clarity.
Yeah.
The purpose of a military is to win conflict. We do not seek conflict, but if it comes to our doors, if it's needed, it's clear that America's military is going to win that. And you're seeing it every time this military has engaged on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. It's mind-blowing, the level of supremacy. The gulf that now exists between America and our adversaries, I don't think since the dropping of the atomic bomb has it been that wide a gulf between capabilities. And so you see Venezuela, like it was just described by Ashbrook, and you see how Iran was one of the most feared militaries on earth in terms of how much money they'd put towards it. All the illegal oil they'd been selling had been going towards buying all this anti-aircraft stuff from Russia and China, and they'd invested so much into this. And you see you see all these memes of everyone's gangster until the pixels start missing from the sky, because America's got this weaponry that just.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny though that is sort of. Rhetorically, I agree. I feel like a lot of people in foreign policy have talked about the strength of Iran and all of this sort of stuff. But isn't it sort of eye-opening that we are less than a week into this conflict and they've been reduced to like tweeting out AI videos of shit?
Yeah.
Like they don't have what they claim they have.
I mean, their Navy, which they had, again, invested so much into, is just, you're seeing it getting just blown to pieces.
It's pretty wet.
It's something. Like their Navy's now essentially just like coral reef. Like the fish are really thrilled down there. They've got new habitats going on. Courtesy of the United States. So I think that should be something that folks consider when they see, the consideration of what this conflict looks like. And you have seen time and time again from President Trump, he does not believe in mission creep. He makes it clear, and it's not just words. When he lets our adversaries know no options off the table, he'll discombobulate your ass if you make him do it. Like no options off the table. So when he says that, I will not take any option off the table, and people are jumping like, he means boots on the ground and I'm going to go die in a war. First off, you're like 50 years old and you're 300 pounds. You're not going to be sent to war.
And what a contrast.
Like the people who are crying about this, it's like, let's be honest for a second. But that's the thing, is we've seen absolute superiority from the Department of War. You've never seen President Trump engage in mission creep or nation building or all these things that Americans have. We're done with that kind of foreign policy.
Yeah.
And it's a very clear contrast to what we saw out of Obama when he drew that red line in Syria and then the Syrians crossed it and he didn't do anything about it.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing that we saw with, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. When they were talking about Iran, they had one word, don't.
Yeah.
And then the Iranians did whatever the hell they wanted to do. Trump says, here's what's going to happen if you guys cross me. And they crossed him. And so now.
And Witkoff laid that out, which I think was really important because Trump pursued peace. He wanted a deal done with this. The gall, the unmitigated gall of these Iranian negotiators to show up and be like, we have uranium enriched to 60%. We could easily take it to 90 for 11 nuclear missiles. You said that to the United States. Fuck you do.
Okay, well.
Fuck you do.
Well, I guess we're going to find out.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it tells you, to Ashbrook's point, how brazen some of these bad actors in the world can get when you let them cross.
They know they can take it.
That's exactly right.
Habitual line steppers is what we would call them.
Well, look, they're just not very well studied in Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, I could forgive them if their breadth of history is a 20-year-long history where you've got 8 years of Obama and 4 years of Joe Biden in it, where those red lines that were drawn were quickly crossed to no real deterrent whatsoever. I mean, if people forget, Donald Trump needed to go clean up the ISIS problem when he first got into office in his first term. And that all existed in large part because of this vacuum that was left by Obama saying one thing and then not following through on any of it. And then you get Joe Biden, and we're still dealing with Ukraine as a result of pulling out of Afghanistan, leading all of our stuff there, and telling the rest of the world, Iran included, we're not serious about anything. You can't really count on us as global partners. Donald Trump shows back up again, and he says, don't do that. They do it. Says it to Maduro. Don't do that. Look what happened. You're snatched from the dead of night. The Ayatollah Khomeini's been there for 46 years. Not any longer.
And then here's the other thing, is the way that you see the media try to like portray Trump as some kind of like a hothead. You see time and again, he always gives these opportunities. He starts with like a slap on the wrist of like, please stop. Don't make me have to do it. Like he was shooting these drug boats and he was like, we'll do it. He's like, I have a military that is going to follow through. Don't do it. And he kept doing it. And then he gets wrapped up.
I totally agree.
Then we wrap up Maduro. He gets put on a helicopter. Trump tried telling him.
I think if I just have one takeaway from all of this, and we'll see, we don't know exactly where this is going to go, but I think you got to give, as you were suggesting, Smug, Trump the benefit of the doubt in terms of the clarity of the mission that he wants to execute. But I guess when you hear the commentators, you hear the critics, I mean, you should listen to Schumer and Jeffries, whatever that fucking nonsense is. It's big boy time. This is big boy stuff. This isn't grab your microphone, pontificate, what's my State Department or my think tank lines? What is a provocative thought experiment for us all to engage in? This is a 40-year problem that has landed on Donald Trump's doorstep, and he decided to do something about it. Is war good? No, war is not. He'll be the first to say it. Says it every single time. Wants to avoid it at all costs. Every once in a while, it is necessary. It is the price that you pay if you want America to be the leader of the free world. That is something that I would hope all of us outside of Rashida Tlaib agree is a good thing, that America is the leader of the free world. You could not say that under Joe Biden. Couldn't say it.
Right.
Not with a straight face. Nobody listened to it. Xi and Putin meeting right after the Olympics, hanging out. Putin deciding he's going to go just take what he wants in Ukraine. Europe basically ignoring him and NATO and like not doing anything. Oh, come help us out. Come, and where, help us out.
Where are she and Putin now?
Exactly.
Because Iran texts them and they're like, new phone, who's this?
Yep.
100%.
And so like you can trust Donald Trump. Also trust your eyes of like what he's done to remake the world order here. Because everybody was like, whoa, well, rising China and Russia. Nope.
That's the thing. Is the lesson that's become this is all connected. You see how China, Iran, Venezuela, Russia basically had their own network that was operating where it was like, oh, we'll send our oil here, we'll get it refined here. We're able to avoid sanctions by selling our oil here. That's how we can stay in business.
Well, they operated freely with the explicit intent of disrupting American influence in the world.
Yep.
And they did it to no consequence whatsoever. And so why would they just not keep doing that and thinking that America was never going to do anything about it? I want to leave you with this because I think the Iran thing, I don't know how this ultimately ends. I do take President Trump at his word, and it is incredible to me how they have dismantled that situation in such a short amount of time. But you have to keep connecting dots here, right? Donald Trump wants to normalize relationships with China at some point, at least from an economic standpoint. He does not want to get into a military arms race with China. He's made that very, very clear. They made it very clear as it relates to Taiwan. But there's this nexus of financing that we've talked about with Ukraine and Russia that counted on Venezuela, that counted on Iran. The other country that's a little closer to our doorstep, Cuba. Where do you think they get their oil? Iran and Venezuela. How do you think they're going to be powering those cities to the extent that they still
those
need
cars from the 1960s?
Yeah. So, look, I'm not suggesting that there's going to be guns blazing in Cuba, but if there's ever a chance, if you look at the way that this foreign policy has worked up to this point,
dude,
if there is a
Cuba probably comes to the table seeing this.
That's what I'm saying. I think that there is a chance for a normalized relationship with Cuba for the first time in 6 generations of America, in large part because they don't have any fucking choices anymore. And that's what effective global policy looks like. Do you want somebody who's willing to entertain nuclear weapons from America's adversaries 90 miles off our coast? Of course not. We went through that in the 1960s, but there's still just been dabbling in this marketplace of nefarious state actors forever. And that's always been sort of a problem. Well, you can see this thing kind of unwinding a little bit. So I don't know. We're gonna stay on it. When we come back, we're gonna dive into politics, straight politics. We put a map together. We did a whole bunch of interviews. Well, people in Texas took advantage of it last night, and we will give you our thoughts on the results of that and a whole lot more right after this.
They closed President Trump's accounts. Now the big banks want to destroy Trump's affordability agenda by putting tolls on your data.
I have no higher priority than making America affordable again. That's what we're going to do.
The banks that went after Trump now want hidden fees on every transaction, making everything more expensive. But President Trump can stop them. Tell President Trump, keep big bank fees out of the open banking rule.
Okay, so Tuesday was the opening round in primary politics in election 2026. All started in the great state of Texas. You recall we had Senator John Cornyn on the program. We had the Attorney General Ken Paxton, and we had Congressman Wesley Hunt on there in what was a 3-way showdown for the United States Senate. There was a lot of other races that were happening there too. One of the things that we flagged was the participation that was happening in Texas, and for the first time since 2002, more Democrats voted than Republicans in the primary. Now, that could be in large part because there was a very competitive, much more competitive than Democrats wanted it to be, primary for Senate on their end between Tallarico and our girl Jazz Crockett, which was a hard-fought deal. But if you look at the way that this thing panned out, let's put up the graphic 1 on the Republican results first. This, I just have to tell you, if I work for Senator John Cornyn, I'm doing backflips today. This is a result that basically nobody in Texas or the national punditry outside of John Cornyn's campaign itself thought was possible. Ken Paxton has a rock solid base of support in Texas, has for many, many years. He had been leading anywhere from 5 to 10 points in this three-way matchup. And for Cornyn to come on top of Paxton, I don't think anybody saw coming. I think everybody thought that he would make it to the runoff. Recall, Texas law stipulates that if the candidates running in a primary do not get to that majority 50% plus one threshold, that they have to go to a mano-a-mano runoff that will happen in May. That's obviously happening here. Can we toss that back up one more time, graphic 1? So Wesley Hunt came in, I think, a disappointing 13.5%. There was some indication that he was tightening that thing up, and there were some folks who speculated about maybe he was getting a whole lot of runoff from people who had basically an anti-incumbent fervor but weren't comfortable with Ken Paxton. That didn't come to fruition, and we all know and love Wesley. You've heard him here on the program a lot. He's a really good guy. That campaign did not come together in the way that they wanted it to, and they took a lot of, incoming fire. I mean, it's not like they just ran a bad campaign. I mean, I think both Paxton and Cornyn made a concerted effort to ensure that he wasn't growing in that. But the proof is in the pudding here, and you've got Cornyn with a lead going into what is a mano-a-mano runoff. Fellas, what do we think about this?
Well, I think, anytime, especially in a state like Texas, anytime you're a member of Congress who represents one particular geographic area and you're running against guys who have been statewide elected time and time again, you've just got a name ID mountain you have to climb. And it's a difficult thing to do.
Folks. That's, I think, the best analysis anyone could give you is an actual nuts and bolts right there.
And the other thing I'll say is, the Cornyn campaign is out with a memo outlining why they think they're going to win this runoff race. And I thought it was very interesting because they pointed to their polling, and they they demonstrated significant growth that Cornyn did against Paxton over the last couple of months. And they pointed to their money advantage as a key component of that growth. And as we all know, working in politics, resources matter, and Cornyn has a very well capitalized organization. There's one other thing that they put in that memo that caught my attention, and I'd be interested in your take on this, Duncan, because runoff elections are traditionally low turnout things, right? You just don't always get the turnout. They point to the 2012 runoff where Ted Cruz beat David Dewhurst, and they say that there was a turnout in that race that was so much higher than normal simply because it was a high-profile national conversation, and they think that the runoff in 2026 could be a similar scenario.
Yeah, and I have no doubt they'll be making that argument to the President of the United States here over the coming days, looking to try to save a lot of money and go to the President and be like, look, if you endorse me, look, I took first place in the primary. If you endorse me, you're going to save a lot of resources for a well-capitalized campaign, James Tallarico, in the general election, right? But I'm sure that the Paxton folks are going to make a different argument there, that the composition of a runoff electorate is fundamentally different than a primary, like you said, lower turnout affairs or what have you. And the profile of a voter who shows up in that runoff, they like Ken Paxton, right? So Cornyn has to make the argument that he can change the fundamentals of that runoff electorate. Maybe he can. He points to his endorsements of a lot of large organizations like Farm Bureau and things like that that can help drive GOTV to a runoff election, and maybe that does change the composition of the electorate, and that gives them an advantage. But I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah, I want to pop up the Democratic results here too, because it's not irrelevant to the conversation that you were just having there. Graphic 2. So Tallarico, Pastor OnlyFans, shows up and does win this thing by a less comfortable margin than Democrats wanted. Recall that Jasmine Crockett ran a campaign that was, well, invisible. Other than doing a few TikTok videos and showing up on cable news, nobody even in D.C. knew that she had a campaign manager or who that person ultimately was. You put that up against what was a highly coordinated establishment choice of James Tallarico, putting him on all of the late night shows, putting him on The View, making sure that they marshaled all the resources to let everybody know that this was their guy that they wanted. I don't know that I would take a lot of heart in the fact that he squeaked one out here.
Well, that's the thing is, so I am of the opinion that because Tallarico is a DC campaign. That's all run out of Schumer's office. And I think this is a grave miscalculation. I think they have something in Tallarico. They think that they've got some like normal guy, Joe Sixpack, who every Texan can relate to. Nope. But believe me, all the oppo is going to come out. I'm not going to put it out because Schumer's going to sue me if I do. Point blank. He's dying folks. To put it out. I'm dying to. Some of it's getting out online. Just do searches on Tallarico. There's a lot of jokes about stuff that he was saying last night about coming out on top. There's a lot of jokes on there. Do that a search on Twitter. You'll find a lot of it. But I will say this is Tallarico has, and we're going to see him in a second. There are so many negatives to this guy that when Texans see this, they will hate him.
I think the two biggest losers outside of Chuck Schumer with this Dem primary, Kamala Harris, who endorsed Jasmine Crockett. I don't know why. Yeah. But like she was trying to flex her muscles and stay relevant.
Of which she just proved she has none whatsoever.
On the national scene and proved she does not. I think the other biggest loser is us.
Yeah, because we get no more jazzy jazz.
No more jazzy jazz. So we got to enjoy the last bit of Jasmine Crockett content that we get.
Well, so
no, there's going to be lots more. She's going to be a contributor. They're going to put her on like CNN or MS Now or whatever that.
You can't let that talent go to waste.
That's the thing. She's going to get what she actually wanted.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. But look, politics change, seasons change. The discussion changes. There's one constant in American politics. It's the necessity of watching what is now MS Now on Democratic primary nights. I had to watch it last night because there's one thing we're going to get into with Jazzy about how let's just play the clip. Clip 3.
So that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion.
Running that
based
playbook.
On what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do. And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why. So, I want you to enjoy yourselves, but I won't be back tonight because I have no idea of when we're going to get results, and I fully anticipate it won't be until tomorrow.
Okay, so what she's talking about was the only thing that MS Now was talking about last night, which is Dallas County, surprise, surprise, in an urban area, decided what they were going to do was try to get people to vote after the 7 p.m. deadline. It's state statute. Polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 7 p.m. But the old tried and true playbook of the Democratic Party is that you try to just line up a whole bunch of people, whether they can ultimately cast a ballot or not. You try to get everybody in line after 7 p.m. and then cry disenfranchisement. Yep. Right? And so there were some legal rulings that were happening where you had a local judge that was like, oh, yeah, maybe they can count them, but if they count them separately, and we'll wait for the authority of the Supreme Court as to whether these can be counted. Probably the right decision, because you're not going to make the decision yourself when you know this is ultimately going to be a Supreme Court situation, state Supreme Court situation right away. And the Supreme Court is like, no, I mean, the law is on the books. Like, this is, if you show up after 7, your vote's not going to count. So, of course, disenfranchisement. I'm watching MS Now last night, and it is unreal. Chris Hayes is losing his mind about, as a principled Democrat, your view ought to be that all votes count no matter what. I mean, he's doing the playbook of like the Obama administration. Like, we now know if all votes are counted, like it's not a good thing for Democrats, but in Dallas County, I assume it is. And the campaigns don't know how to respond. Like Crockett's obviously like, well, I would win if all of these things, which is nonsense. Tallarico doesn't know how to deal with it. He's like, hey, we just did the racism in our primary. I don't want to get too far out there.
And that's the thing. He never had to be combative because the Schumer playbook for him was, he's my chosen candidate. We're going to make sure that he gets TV bookings. We'll get him on Colbert so he can fundraise $2 million saying that big bad Republicans, Trump wants me to be censored. Trump won't let me speak, which is an absolute lie. But they got the $2 million off of it, the money that he needed to get him over the top.
But here's the funniest part about this. So Simone Sanders, who, you don't have to agree with her politics, but she's smart and she's been in this line of work for a long time, comes on the panel after they're talking about these evil Republicans doing all this to say, well, it's in statute, like what should happen here, but also this is just a Democrat thing. So they're talking about how Ken Paxton and the Republicans had done this, and his name's on the ballot, so there's something nefarious happening there. Well, it doesn't apply because it's a primary and it doesn't affect it. We're exclusively talking about the Democratic thing. There was no challenge on the Republican primary ballot, which is not a state-operated thing. It's operated within the context of the political parties. So that technically, like when you're saying the Republicans are doing it, it's not the Republicans doing it. It's the Democrats just not following state law. They did not want to hear it. They just could not hear. And she's in that uncomfortable position of being the most progressive leftist on the entire panel, being like, yeah, but the laws are the laws.
Not to mention also a black woman.
Yeah, I know.
They're like, shut up and be quiet.
Yeah, you shut up.
We were making a point trying to blame the Republicans. Don't give us facts.
And like, yeah, exactly. And so like Wallace and Maddow are trying to do their like, routine. And then what becomes very clear to me, Michael Steele, the former RNC chairman who has turned into a lunatic, I've come to the conclusion that he is the single dumbest human being that has ever been hired by a publication, news organization, cable broadcast, or anything in the history of American politics.
Okay.
Wow.
He then hears all of this and blames Ken Paxton for the result of that. And the analysis honestly would make your ears bleed. I cannot believe that there's any executive over at MS Now who could sit and listen to what I listen to. I don't care what your partisan stripes are, and not be like, what are we doing? Why is this guy on here?
Outside the people on set and you, I don't know how many people are listening to MS Now. If we're being honest, they're like audience numbers are now just so bad. That's why they got spun out. And NBC was like, even we want nothing to do with it.
I assume it's on election night, it's people like me. Who are doing it for the yucks.
Cry for me, please.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic stuff. So anyway, that's what happened. Crockett goes down. Tallarico, we got to reintroduce to you a little bit. The pastor OnlyFans. Clip 5, please.
God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
That's why we call him the Holy Father, right? Is that right?
It won't be enough to beat him in the election. He should be jailed.
Let's go clip 8, just in case you're not done with that.
But I say all this in terms of, in context of abortion, because before God comes over Mary and we have the incarnation, God asks for Mary's consent, which is remarkable. I mean, go back and read this in Luke. I mean, the angel comes down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do. And she says, if it is God's will, let it be done. Let it be. Let it happen. So to me, that is an affirmation in one of our most central stories that creation has to be done with consent. You cannot force someone to create. Creation is one of the most sacred acts that we engage in as human beings, but that has to be done with consent. It has to be done with freedom. And to me, that is absolutely consistent with the ministry and life and death of Jesus. And so that's how I come down on that side of the issue.
Because clearly, 2,000 years ago, the first thing on God's mind was, how do I thread the needle for a Dem primary talking point in Texas?
I think
get out of here.
The religious case for abortion.
Well, using Mary's Annunciation as a case for abortion feels like heresy. Like he should be excommunicated.
It doesn't feel like it. It pretty much is.
It is.
It is.
It's so shockingly offensive.
Yeah.
And it's just, but that's just the tip of the iceberg with this guy. I think, look, I think Smug's right that we're going to get into a whole bunch more. If you weren't offended by that, boy, oh boy, just wait, there's more. You got to go to our map. For all these primaries, and there's a lot more coming up here over the next month. You go to ruthlesspodcast.com/map, and we give you the interviews for everybody that you're going to need to cast a ballot. Hats off to Watley, by the way, our guest on the program. His interview was up there. He won his primary, or lack thereof, really, in North Carolina, but he's now the general election candidate against Roy Cooper in what will be a highly watched North Carolina Senate race. Moving on from all of that, we have to get into a game, fellas. I believe I'm a judge, so we're going to get to it right after this. Okay, it's Thursday, and you know what that means. It's our signature game here on the Ruthless Friday program, King of the Hill. Who do we have going today?
Well, I'm the defending champion with Bill Kristol.
I bet he's got some good stuff.
Well, that's the thing. So I have the challenger, Sarah Longwell, but I mean, as Ashbrook intimated earlier, we have had so many folks tagging us in tweets, especially Bill Kristol's tweets. I honestly feel like whoever's elected Ayatollah in Iran these days, where you're just waiting for the bomb to be dropped on your head. So, like, I'm going to try to play. But
I'll be the judge of that.
Dude, Kristol's artillery. Everybody, believe me, I'm trying. I'm trying, folks.
Candidly, I'm going to be the judge of all that. I'd ask the champion to begin, but we have to go ringside first.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the red corner, fighting from a different page of Pierre Omidyar's checkbook, our challenger, Sarah Long Not Well. And now, in the blue corner, fighting from who knows where today, and current champion of the world, Bill War Now, War Forever, Kristol.
Oh, I love it. All right, so Kristol, what do we got here?
I have so much.
I can only imagine. This has got to be a particularly tempestuous time to be Bill Kristol.
I mean, the hardest part is choosing. Okay. I want to start with the Rubio one, Exhibit 7, please. Bill Kristol writes, Rubio's idiotic justification for the, quote, imminent threat. Israel was going to act, and we couldn't do anything about it. And we allegedly were going to be hit by Iran in response is going over like a lead balloon.
Who is he talking to?
The administration could have problems in Congress later this week. So, I mean, like, it's a couple of things. Obviously, it's entirely divorced from War Now, War Forever, Kristol's like body of work
lifelong
over his entire career, which is an incredible heel turn. Yep. But then I also love he's now a congressional expert on what's going to happen.
A lead balloon.
Which is a lead balloon. I would also point, and I'm not going to show it up on the graphic because I want to honor the game. And there's been a lot of chicanery and recently and, consternation about videos and things of that nature. But I would note that back on January 8th, Bill Kristol put up a tweet about how the Trump administration should be helping the brave people of Iran overthrow
that's actually
a cruel and terror-sponsoring dictatorship.
The court will accept that. The court will accept that.
I mean, like, dude, Kristol for years has been like, please, for maybe 20 years plus, been like, please bomb Iran.
Your Honor, will accept it. Counsel failed to mention, but Bill Kristol also urged Marco Rubio to run for president about 10 years ago.
He sure did. He sure did. Okay. Challenger.
Exhibit 19, please. This is Sarah Longwell, who's just mad that she's not as successful as Scott Jennings.
Oh, boy.
Just saying, so when Scott Jennings told all of us this weekend that Iran was planning preemptive strikes against the U.S., he was laundering a lie for the administration. Boy, if you can't trust Scott Jennings, who can you trust?
Oh, my God. Jeez.
I mean, she's trying, dude. Bill Kristol, during an Iran getting bombed week.
Dude, I do want to think about this for a second because objectively speaking, what Kristol's heel turn here is more offensive. But the idea that you take the gravity of what we're doing in Iran and then try to attack a commentator on CNN is remarkably it just doesn't hold the gravity of the heel turn and what you've known. I have to give it to Kristol round one.
Thank you.
This is like Jordan showed up to the game with a fever, and you're like, oh my God. Of course he's going to go crazy. I'm just trying, folks. I'm trying. Exhibit 17, please, for round 2. This is Sarah Longwell. Anyone heard from our Vice shit poster lately? It took him about 30 seconds to call Renee Good a domestic terrorist. Weird his thumbs are taking a break right now. There were photos of him in the Situation Room that were put out while the strikes were beginning. He went on like Jesse's show, like, lady, turn on your TV. He's probably live.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Okay. We've mentioned the heel turn of Bill Kristol on war. Ladies and gentlemen, he's done it yet again. Exhibit number 11, please. The people of Iran deserve to be free.
Oh, my God.
But it's increasingly clear the Trump administration doesn't care about that. But as they back away from regime change, and since there is no real threat, what plausible or defensible case for the war remains? Now he's mad at Trump because he's not doing enough regime change.
Dude, this is incredible. I didn't see this one yet.
Hold on. Can you pop that back up there?
It's straight up schizophrenic.
And he's got some clip that he's hitting up there.
Yeah.
Dude, this is the most Kristol thing possible.
It's that they're not doing enough of the regime change. He's not clear about the commitment. It's all a mistake.
He's hitting him from all sides.
It's all a mistake, but if it isn't a mistake, it should be regime change. Yeah. That's fucking bonkers. He wins. 2-round knockout.
Let's go.
That's done.
That was amazing. I didn't even see that one.
You got to think.
What a Kristol take.
When we started this game 4 years ago, if you were to say in 2026, there's going to be a week where America is at war with Iran, who is going to be your play? You would have chosen Bill Kristol.
Yeah.
That would have been.
I mean, his whole life has led up to this moment.
Yes.
And now he's not even a part of it.
I love it. All right. So we got to get to our interview. This is the NASA administrator, a whale of an interesting guy, Jared Isaacman. One of the things that we like to do on Ruthless is provide some perspective on things that are fun.
Yes.
Things that are interesting and outside the box of the typical political thing one way or another. And I can't imagine there is a guest that we could find that would be more well-equipped to start discussing things that allow the mind to wander a touch than Jared Isaacman. He is our NASA administrator and a whale of a guy. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, this is so great. All right, so this guy's into space.
Yeah, when I told my friends that we were going to have you on the show, there were a million text messages of like, first off, that's amazing because, you yourself have been to space. You've done a spacewalk. You fly fighter jets. I love people in command who have actually had experience in that field, and it makes all of us so optimistic about not just the future of NASA, but the future of America. Like, so frequently you hear the whole thing of like, oh, America's so back. This really feels like it. So first, thank you for being here. And what is NASA going to be up to? You guys are going back to the moon?
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting objectives on the horizon. I mean, thanks to President Trump, I've got all the ingredients I need to get the job done. Right? Literally the day I was sworn into the job, I'm in the Oval Office as the president signs a national space policy, and that's so important, right? Because it becomes like a whole government alignment around what needs to be done. What does he say to do? He says, return to the moon, which he started, really made the first positive steps after pointing this out. 35 years of presidents saying, because it's great to say, to have a big press conference, we're going to return to the moon. No one took really meaningful steps in that direction until President Trump did in his first term, created the Artemis program. Then again, day I get sworn into office, signs a space policy, says, not only am I committing us back to the moon, I want us to go back to stay, build a moon base. We're not just doing the flag and the footsteps anymore. We want to stay, realize the scientific, economic, national security benefit. And I want you to do other things in parallel so we can go beyond the moon. Let's get to Mars, plant the stars and stripes. So he says invest in nuclear power and propulsion. Yep. I mean, really the next generation stuff that's been funded to go nowhere for decades. Now we're going to actually get America underway in nuclear power and propulsion. Build the orbital economy, transition to commercial space stations, launch more missions of science and discovery. I mean, I got the mandate. I got the funds from President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. I mean, most significant plus up for exploration dollars in modern history. I mean, since really the Kennedy era of space exploration, right? So we got all the ingredients. Now we just got to execute.
Well, one of those ingredients, of course, is personnel, and President Trump picked the perfect guy to lead NASA at this time. I wonder if you could just give our audience a little bit about your background, because what we know is incredible, and I think they should know it too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am certainly grateful for the opportunity. I have lived the American dream, so I believe I have a debt to this nation that I need to repay. I mean, my story began at 16 when I dropped out of school. I'm very sure there's no other NASA administrator who can claim they left high school early. So I didn't start off on the right track on this one, but was able to build a company in fintech. It's a pretty big company, public company today. Thousands of people and, processing payments on 6 different continents. I mean, I think maybe a little bit more relevant to my job today, I started a defense company in 2011. We actually assembled the world's largest private air force, over 100 fighter jets. So I had to travel around the world and convince countries to sell me their excess military hardware, which those are interesting conversations.
I can only imagine.
I definitely visited some countries where I was like, not going back.
Think that jet lights up because we'd like to get out of here fast.
Yeah. I mean, because our job is to be professional bad guys. Again, to use these fighter jets to basically be, fighter jets as a service. If I had called it that, I would have gotten a higher valuation when I sold it to Blackstone. But basically, turnkey fighter jets as a service. We were replicating Russian, Chinese, Iranian threats. But that meant when you had to procure these fighters, you're not buying American stuff because we can train against our own stuff all day long. You want to train against something dissimilar, something you haven't seen before. So had to go to some pretty interesting countries along the way. Over 100 fighter jets.
Did you ever just sort of like find yourself in one of those rooms and you look around and you're like, what the hell have I gotten myself into?
Oh, I mean, I thought we were really close to them, like, hold up the newspaper for the picture moment. I mean, there were some signs like X number of kilometers away from, and you're like, nope, not doing that.
Seriously.
But I mean, you certainly learned an awful lot about how governments do business. Their motivation, very different than how, what motivates them, and their incentives, very different than traditional commercial type transactions. Yeah. And then also an opportunity to learn how the government works, which, it's very different. I can't say that a lot of my experiences in government contracting had a lot of carryover to the commercial world, but maybe helped prepare me a little bit for this job. And the other thing is I've been very involved in kind of early commercials, space exploration for a while. To your point, I led SpaceX's first all-civilian mission to orbit called Inspiration 4 in 2021, then went back to space in 2024 where went farther into space than anyone's gone since Apollo, which thankfully we're about to break that record with Artemis 2 coming up. We tested a new spacesuit, first one built in 40 years, did some optical communication, a bunch of science and research. So I have a background that the president thought could be helpful to NASA especially now when we have not faced a real competitor, since the 1960s. And I'll tell you then, we had lots of schedule margin. I mean, we got to the moon and no one's been back since.
Yeah.
Now we are months. I mean, literally, we have months of margin against our rival, and the Chinese are capable of doing this. So it's time that we really get in action.
So have you ever seen or heard about this show, For All Mankind?
Of course.
So for our folks in the audience who haven't heard about it, it's kind of like an alternate universe where the Russians beat America to the moon.
Right.
But the unexpected thing is it's like the space race never ended and America remained motivated to innovate and keep going bigger and bolder and establishing all these new technologies, because so much of the technology we have, like GPS and stuff like that, is based off of America being the bold country that pushes the envelope, that goes up into space, that tries to learn more and do more. How do you think you are going to be able to harness in real life, not in an alternate reality, that kind of spirit of discovery and innovation that powered this country for so long?
Tell you, when I met with the president several times on what do we need to do, at NASA, it really came down to 3 priorities: American leadership in the ultimate high ground of space, return to the moon, build a moon base, prepare for the next giant leap to Mars. Number 2, ignite the orbital economy.
Yes.
For 60 years now, the space economy comes down to launch, observation, and communications. That has not changed. And that's kind of concerning because when we talk about a space economy, it's really more like a terrestrial economy. It's lots of people with lots of private capital, which is good, especially from some of the wealthiest people in the world, making investments in space. But we actually haven't found anything that takes advantage of the unique environment of microgravity or lunar regolith or other elements where we can get more value out than we put in.
Space tourism.
And that's a problem. even space tourism, to be very honest. I mean, over like a 30 some odd year history, you can measure it. You can count the number of like space tourists on two hands. So we actually need to crack the code. For all mankind, it was helium-3 on the moon, which we don't have a lot of it here on Earth, but we do have some of it. There's certainly more of it on the moon. Whatever it is, almost all good sci-fi shows are based on some sort of space dust or something else out there, spice, where you can unlock lots of value. And that way, the future we all want to see in space isn't perpetually dependent on taxpayers. We're never going to have lots of space stations and orbital outposts everywhere if it's always the taxpayers funding the bill. So to your point, the show is great because it shows a true, space or orbital economy, and we need to ignite one here on Earth.
So tell me a little bit about the news here. I mean, you've touched on it. We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon soon. And this isn't a one-off experience. We are trying to do things that we've never done before. Permanent presence, maybe not permanent, but presence that can be built upon. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the president's given us the direction, which is absolutely fantastic. The hard part now is execution, and there's a little bit of a Houston, we have a problem here type moment, right? Presidents for 35 years have said we should go back to the moon. Taxpayers have put almost $100 billion into it. Why hasn't it happened yet? Why do we have Artemis 1, which is the first, true moon rocket, if you will, capable of sending, astronauts back towards the moon, which was an uncrewed mission launching in late 2022. And here we are out to the pad 3.5 years later, and we still are realizing some of the same problems from Artemis 1. We're launching our moon rockets, every 3.5 years. Is that a pathway to success?
Yeah.
And then on top of the cadence, so when Artemis 2 does launch, which is approaching, and it will be the most historic human spaceflight mission in more than a half century, going around the moon, the next one up, Artemis 3, 3 years later, just before the end of President Trump's term, we're supposed to land. So we're launching every 3 years, and we're creating these massive capability leaps between missions. Does that sound anything like Apollo?
Right.
I mean, we had Mercury, Gemini, Apollo. We didn't just go right to Apollo 11. We
it
did
was
things
incremental.
Absolutely. It was an evolutionary approach. We're gonna launch, we're gonna learn, we're gonna use that to inform the subsequent mission. Kind of forgot that a little bit. Why? Did we lose our history books? No, we had all these stakeholders telling NASA how to do things, and we wound up spreading ourselves thin on so many different side quests. Right? All as, some of them are good, but this kind of detracts a little bit from the mission, the reason the agency was created in the first place, right? I mean, industry telling us what to do, Congress telling us what to do. This has been going on for decades instead of doing what we are supposed to do. Now we're fixing that, right? And how did we get that alignment last week? Because what did we say last week? We said we're done with launching moon rockets every 3 years. We're going to launch at least every year. We're going to standardize configuration. We're not going to make our rocket a work of art every time we fly.
Yeah.
Let's get to standardization.
Something that works.
And we're going to create new missions so we can build on our success until we ultimately get to the moon before the end of President Trump's term. And we had universal support. Congress, industry. Why? Because I think people woke up and realized, you know what? I think the last X number of decades of trying to tell NASA what to do instead of letting the rocket scientists tell us what to do isn't working. And now we're months away from the Chinese potentially beating us. We got to do something different. And now we got the support to do it.
That's something I really want to touch on is China, it feels like for the past decade, has really put the pedal to the metal on space exploration and gotten very serious about that. What are their capabilities? How close are they to us, and how much of a threat are they to us with that?
They're a major threat. For a long time, we kind of fooled ourselves by referring to our great rival as a near peer. Let's just call it what it is. They're a peer. I mean, when it comes to space, sure, they don't have the reusable technology that that SpaceX and now Blue Origin have given us, where you can launch a rocket and recover, so you don't have to throw it away every time. There's still like a strong number 2 in terms of number of orbital launches every single year, and that's based on throwing away the rocket. I mean, they're on the cusp of reusability, in which case they will have the potential to match us in that. They just demonstrated their Long March 10, which is their moon rocket, their in-flight abort capability a couple weeks ago. They've shown off their lander. They've shown off their suits. I mean, like I said, they're open source public information. The United States is committed to returning astronauts to the moon before the end of President Trump's term. It's obviously end of 2028. The Chinese have said before 2030. No matter how you slice it, you're measuring it on months. Mm-hmm. That's not a good position to be in. I mean, we have NASA's the peaceful exploration of science and discovery. We have Space Force that looks out for our defense. It's kind of watching out for us in the ultimate high ground of space. They don't draw the distinction. It's all one channel for them. Mm-hmm. So they're looking at everything through breakthroughs in exploration discovery for national security and the militarization of space, and that's problematic.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about President Trump's vision and Jared, what you are carrying out is my entire lifetime has been defined by like what I would call photo op space, where we did the important stuff, right? 1969 throughout the 70s. And then we got to a point where we're just kind of like putting the shoes back on and showing we can send stuff in space for a while. You retire the shuttle program. It's largely dormant until you get SpaceX and all these other, new, very cool, no question about it. But it's the photo op that we're looking at. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of important stuff when it comes to defense and whatever. But what you're talking about, what President Trump is talking about is a change in terms of how we see space and whether or not we can build and whether or not we can build upon previous generations' moves here. And I think it is a way to get a new generation into what it is that you're talking about on a day-to-day basis, because it largely escaped mine, to be honest. It was like all we did is sit around and wait for a disaster that we all lament. And that's not what space was about from the very beginning. It's that new frontier component that I think we've listened to you talk about it. You've largely captured this sort of new identity of where we go from here.
Well, I think President Trump realizes that we have a great competitor, not just in the ultimate high ground of space, which is the high ground has mattered since like the beginning of human time here, but across all of the most important technological domains. And the president does not like to lose. Mm-hmm. And he's actually getting us underway, working towards winning. Now, I think what some of the prior administrations failed to realize is there is a great competition underway. So what happened, and I think you see this a lot in DOW as well. Like when you don't have a competitor, you can lose some of the basics. It certainly isn't help when industry completely consolidates and it's like they're developing programs to serve itself as opposed to the warfighters. That's why I love Secretary Hegseth. All the President Trump's appointees in the Department of War that are challenging the status quo, getting back to basics and delivering. We got to do the same thing at NASA, because if you admire what SpaceX is capable of doing, you see how much progress they've made in 5 years. That's China. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. When people are like, oh, 2 years ago they didn't know how to do this or that. It's like that's like saying SpaceX, 2 years ago didn't know how to do something. Everything changes, right? I mean, this is a country that 25 years ago, still had coal-fired locomotives, and now they have 25,000 miles of high-speed rail.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can't snooze on these. So I think the president appreciates there is a competition right now across all the most important domains, especially in space, and this is not going to be an administration that's willing to accept second place.
So I want to ask you, if you've grown up reading about space and reading about the moon and dreaming about the possibilities, you've been told that the moon itself could be a wealth of natural resources beyond our wildest imagination. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what's possible to collect from the moon.
Well, I would say first, getting back to the moon is a stepping stone for a lot more broader exploration and discovery as well. So even if the moon isn't what ultimately ignites, a lunar or orbital economy, it's going to help us learn for other applications, whether it's things like mining asteroids, where there is no question we are going to get a lot of value out of asteroids, or what is probably just imperative to ultimately achieving a national or humankind becoming a spacefaring civilization. Not to mention the national prestige of, for the first time, sending astronauts to another planet. Right? You're going to use the moon as the proving ground to do it. Now, what could be on the moon? Helium-3 for sure. We know there's more of it on the moon than there is here on Earth. Still going to be a process to mine it and refine it, but it has applications for quantum computing. Might be a source for a more efficient fusion reaction. But we do have it here on Earth, and we can make it, so it's not totally dependent on lunar applications. But we got to have some sort of a technical proving ground outside of what is essentially the protection of low Earth orbit, where our space station is. Being in space is hard. Anytime you're putting enough energy to send something to orbital velocity, that's a big deal. You have no atmosphere, in the vacuum of space. You've got micrometeoroids, you got radiation. But if you were going to ever put people in space, safest place to do it is in low Earth orbit. It's going to get a lot harder when you're on the moon, and certainly a lot harder when you go on Mars. So, yes, I hope there's value we can extract out of the lunar regolith. If not, it'll certainly be a great proving ground for where we go next.
Well, my last question. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask for my friend Mike Solana. Is there any reason why we can't make the moon the 51st state?
The Outer Space Treaty, for sure.
Well, we do have laws.
Yeah. Now, we are going to have a moon base. There's no doubt about it. Awesome. And there are parts of the moon that are of great interest to us where you've got ice, where if you get up on the ridges, you also have not continuous, but almost near continuous access to the sun, which is great. So tap into the fusion reactor and have ice for experimentation. That's not a big portion of the moon. It's a small portion. That's where we're going to build our moon base.
Nice. Isaacman, where are we at on aliens? Are you like are you an alien guy?
Yeah.
Are you just like, well, show me an alien and then I'm an alien guy?
I'll tell you, as the administrator of NASA, where most people would be like, this guy's got to know, right? And having been to space twice, when the president put out his truth on this that said, declassify it all, I'm like, I got to get this briefing. Because I've said it before. I was like, there are things at NASA that I've seen that I can't explain, but they're usually like programs that are over budget and behind schedule and not extraterrestrial life. Yeah.
Not a little green guy. All right. Well, listen, if you encounter one on any of these missions, come on back. Just give us a little.
My kids will be the first to know. You'll be the second. Awesome. I made that promise years ago. So
I love it. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Okay, this is exactly the guy that you want in charge of NASA. Obviously, he's super successful in business, and he's bringing some of that common sense mindset to the government. But clearly a dude who's spent a lot of time thinking about space and what's possible.
I mean, he's been to space. He's done a spacewalk. In his free time, he flies fighter jets.
I know. It's wild. And he's young and he's outside of the box and he thinks about this stuff in both an effectual, like how can you do it type way, but also like what's possible. I love that.
And it's the thing I love about the Trump administration writ large is it seems like every person they bring in at a high level is somebody with personal real life experience in the thing.
Yeah, dude.
You know, we're not talking about career bureaucrats who were in the bowels of some nameless, faceless administration.
Past TPS reports around.
Yeah. These are real pros. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's going to be somebody to follow here because I think we're doing some pretty exciting stuff, as he mentioned here on the program. So space is coming back. We're going to be a space country again. How about that?
Pretty good.
Listen, when you like and subscribe to the Ruthless Variety program, we always ask you a question of the day. Our question of the day is, what is Jasmine Crockett going to do? What's she going to do? She's out of Congress. She didn't win it.
She's wondering the same thing.
They make your comments funny for Fun Time Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. That's our question of the day is, what is Jazzy Jazz going to do now? Make it funny because it's Fun Time Friday. When you like and subscribe, we read all of them and get back to the very next episode. Like, subscribe, check out some merch. This is, a lot going on these days. With that, fellas, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, and thank you to the listeners. Remember, if you have not yet, go to the YouTube and hit that subscribe because it's more fun in video. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you Friday. Stay ruthless.